Hi, I'm Megan, a freelance policy and nonprofit consultant. Having spent a lot of time conducting policy research and asking people to become more involved in their community and their government, I get a lot of questions about how everything works. So for the next several weeks, maybe months, I'll be posting nonpartisan, very short videos about policies and government processes that affect you, regular people. Do you have a question about a specific policy? And what do you always want to know about how the federal or state or local government? Do you want to know how to get involved but aren't quite sure where to start? Happy to answer all those questions. Who's eighth in line to the British throne? I also have that answer for some reason. Ask me any policy related question in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them with the facts or find someone who can. So last Tuesday was the third anniversary of when the Oklahoma legislature decided to make the EITC non-refundable. What's the EITC, you ask? Well, I'm glad you did, because the EITC is really hard to say 50 times. It's also the Earned Income Tax Credit, which was created in 1975 through Congress, and it's considered to be the largest anti-poverty tool in our country. Basically, low to moderate income individuals receive a credit equal to a certain percentage of their income. They have to work, they have to be contributing taxes in some way. The credit varies by family size, so if you have a bigger family, you qualify for a bigger tax credit. The other interesting thing about this policy is that the federal EITC is a refundable tax credit, which are somewhat rare, particularly now. So that means that you get the full value of the credit regardless of how much you owe in taxes. Other regular non-refundable taxes means you only get up to what you owe. So if my family owed $2,000 in taxes, but we qualified for $2,500 through the EITC, we would get back $500 because it is a refundable tax credit. Unlike if it was non-refundable, we would only get $0. And we could use that $500 for anything, fixing the air conditioner, taking care of that dental care we've been putting off, that sort of thing. It's kind of exciting to get that money back in individuals' pockets, particularly people who aren't making a lot of money in the first place. In addition to the federal EITC, 28 states have their own state EITC, and all but 6 of those states have made it refundable as well. The ones that haven't are Delaware, Hawaii, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Virginia. Almost all the states have created the EITC to be a percentage of the federal EITC, and that percentage can range anywhere from 3% to 125%. Oklahoma's is 5%. And you can find more details about specific states and how their EITC works in the links below. So what are the benefits of the EITC? Does it really work to help lift families out of poverty? We want it to work, right? It makes sense. Researchers have actually found that there are a lot of impacts on people's health that are associated with how generous the amount of the credit is. So more credit, more money from the credit means more likely for these things to happen. First of all, there was a reduction in the abortion rate by 7.6%, directly tied to a reduction in pregnancy rates of people who received the EITC. There was also an increase in infant birth weight and other good birth outcomes like longer gestational periods, children born on time, less likely to be born early, and the infant mortality rate. Short-term increases in the happiness and mental health of married mothers, specifically, just married mothers, not single. And according to the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, the EITC brought over 6 million people out of poverty. So I would say, yeah, that's pretty strong evidence that it works and it's a good policy to have in place, and it has even bigger impacts than probably Congresspersons thought it would when they first started it. What's exciting is the impact it has on health, which I think is something that they probably didn't think about in the first place. Who knew that having access to money would provide you better health, better prenatal care, and contraception, and mental health. Here's the thing the EITC doesn't do. It has no impact on short-term health of children, although you could argue that it would have impact on long-term health of children, particularly children who were born healthy, better birth weights, and on time. It does not really financially benefit single childless working adults, and the maximum credit they received in 2018 was just over $500, which isn't a whole lot, especially compared to families. And they can only receive the credit if they are over 24 or under 64. So that's a huge gap in the number of people who are working and the age range of people who are working. So why am I bringing this up? Why does anybody else care about the EITC except for me? While multiple times Congress has tried to enact legislation making it easier and being able to increase the number of single adults that can qualify by expanding the age or raising the maximum credit that they can receive. So instead of 500, they'd receive closer to what you would if you had children. Because positive impacts of the ITC correlate with how big the credit is, and because it's a bipartisan method of reducing poverty, states have taken it upon themselves to make their own changes. So Washington, D.C. Has allowed, or offered, I guess, 100% of the federal EITC to individuals without children. So that means 100%. So they get federal EITC, and then whatever they got from the federal EITC, they would also get from Washington, D.C. And they expanded the range of income beyond the federal limits. So their cutoff for income is higher in DC than it would be federally. California and Maryland were actually the first states to expand the eligibility to 18 to 24-year-old single adults, which is very exciting. So yeah, there's been some good progress among states individually, which is how a lot of policy happens. So let's circle back to Oklahoma. In 2016, as I said before, the state legislature decided to make the EITC non-refundable and save just under $30 million in order to close a $900 million budget hole. What they chose not to do, and they could have done, is raise taxes on high-income earners or increase the gross protection tax. Eventually they did increase the GPT. Eventually they did pass some new taxes and some new revenue raising measures. And, yes, that's all in the past, and half those people are gone now. But for this year, for the first time in several years, there isn't a budget hole. So hooray, our budget problems are over, because they did raise revenue in some way. We have new taxes on some things, mostly sales taxes. GPT went up. So yeah, it's kind of exciting, and I think people feel like they can breathe again. So you would think that they would start adding money back where they took it in order to cover the last several years' holes, right? Well, despite certain members' attempts to make the EITC refundable again, it didn't happen. At least 9 bills were filed to fix the issue, and none were heard, which means legislators didn't even get a chance to decide or vote on whether they wanted to keep it non-refundable or not. Things that the legislature did do with the money was put $200 million into the state rainy day fund. It makes sense to want to save some money, particularly since we've had such awful budget holes in the last several years. Guess how much the rainy day fund had before that? $454 million. So now we'll have over 600, not including the additional revenue that is already appropriated to it automatically. I heard something like close to $1 billion in the next year or two. But I'll look that up, and we can talk about the rainy day fund another day. It's not like the legislator did nothing with the additional revenue this year. They did increase every agency's appropriations by 5%, so that's really exciting. However, in the last several years, they've also cut agencies' appropriations by over 20%. So yeah, they did some good stuff. I'm excited. I think I made it pretty clear about how I feel about the ITC and whether I think it should be refundable or not. But I want to know what your thoughts are. How would you have spent that extra $200 million? It would have only been $30 million out of it, the 200, which means you had another $170 million that could have been used for something else, or could have also been put in the savings account. Would you have saved it for a rainy day, given it to those who need it? Perhaps you need a little bit more information before you would make your determination. About 1 in 6 Oklahomans have incomes below the poverty line, and that could have an impact on how you think about what to do with that money. How about the fact that over 300,000 Oklahomans claimed the credit in 2014? You can check out all the links below with more information about the EITC, as well as things going on in Oklahoma, and reports that I referenced in this video. I want to know your thoughts, so please leave me a comment. I think it's important to realize that our elected officials are human, but I also think it's important that we hold them accountable for the decisions that they make, particularly when they make decisions that affect people who don't necessarily or don't always have a voice at the Capitol. For those of us who don't qualify for the EITC because we make too much money, and those of us who are regular advocates or people who regularly call out our representatives, I think it's important that we make time to approach them about things that haven't been talked about or that have been ignored. And I don't know that if you understand me, but I don't think that we should always be reactionary. I think we should be progressively looking for things that would help our communities without just waiting for someone to send us an email and say take action. So here's my charge. After you give me a comment, and please do, hit up your state senator and your state rep and your congressional representatives and let them know your thoughts about the EITC too. You can find their contact information for your state reps at letsfixthisok.org. Link is below. And you can find your congressperson at whoismyrepresentative.com. You can also look up your voting place and your districts at the Oklahoma State Election Board website, also linked below. With that, my time is up. I hope you enjoyed this quick policy analysis. Please hit like if you did. Next time, I'll be discussing term limits. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. Are they good? Are they bad? Who knows? We'll find out. Find out by hitting that subscribe button and get notified when it drops. I appreciate the views and the likes and the comments and can't wait to talk to you guys about more nerdy policy stuff. Thanks.